Solar just makes sense for Castleton, honestly. We have all the required, what do you call it, factors, in that we've got the necessary space to install the solar panels, number one. Number two, we own our own transformer, so it is very easy for us to actually feed the generation of electricity that we get from the solar panels into the transformer, obviously via the inverters. And by adding a battery bank to the solution, we get the cover for load shedding that we need. Quite simply, our transformer is located towards the middle of the estate. So ideal would be to place all the solar panels that we need on the roofs closest to the transformer. We already have existing cabling that runs between the buildings. However, should it need be, there will be new trunking put in to accommodate the cabling and taken directly to the transformer. So from the generation, aka the solar panels, it will go to the inverters, which will be housed in a small building that would need to be erected next to the transformer. And from there, the feed goes directly into the transformer and is distributed as per normal into all of our units. Well, this is a very interesting question, and something that ultimately became as a surprise once we started investigating all the available solutions properly. So the initial thought, I think, when anyone thinks about solar, is that it's going to be incredibly expensive, which it is if you're looking at it from an individual point of view. However, because we have 129 units, it becomes a lot more affordable if you look at the finance options that are available to us. We looked at a few different solutions or finance solutions, and one being obviously the outright purchase of the equipment that we would need in order to generate enough electricity for our needs. But the body corporate of Castleton simply cannot afford that. The second would be an outright lease, which ranges between 10 and 20 years. And basically we pay one fee monthly, and that covers the installation, generation and battery backup. Or, and here is where it gets very interesting, what they call a PPA, or a power purchase agreement, which basically comes down to a financier that pays for the installation or the installation of, let me just draw a line here between generation and storage. So for the generation, that goes onto a PPA agreement, which ultimately means that it becomes like a little ESCOM, where all the generation that is generated basically is available to us, and we only pay for the electricity that we use. So where we are currently paying R1.43 odd per kilowatt hour to the municipal grid, we will be paying on a PPA R1.60. Now keep in mind that with the increase in electricity from the municipal grid that is due now in April, that fee of R1.43 will be going up to R1.70, which means at R1.60 we are 10 cents per kilowatt hour cheaper than the municipal grid on the PPA. The second part is obviously the battery storage. Now that is not included in a PPA and is only done on a lease basis. So if we take the monthly lease that was quoted in the initial proposal and we divide it by 129 units, it works out to a fee just below R450 per unit per month. There are various other factors that need to be taken into account, such as the municipal availability fee that we currently pay. And keep in mind that this is calculated on the highest spike of our consumption on a monthly basis. So, should we have a scenario where we've had load shedding and the electricity comes on, then obviously all the appliances that were on before the electricity went off suddenly kick in, and that creates a spike in consumption. This is the figure that the municipality uses to calculate what our availability fee is going to be. The nice part about a solar solution with a battery backup is that it acts to smooth those spikes. In other words, if we're in load shedding and the electricity comes back on, the appliances that ordinarily would have kicked in and created a spike are already running. So there is no actual spike to speak of. The estimation, and this unfortunately cannot be confirmed, is that our monthly consumption or availability fee, will be driven down by about half, which cancels out a lot of that 450 Rand per month fee that I spoke of. But as I said, we cannot get information from the municipality as to how much this will be driven down by. So, worst case scenario, this is going to cost each individual owner 450 Rand per month approximately. There are no hidden costs. The nice part about a PPA is that it is done over a set period. So the solution that we are looking at is a PPA on the generation for a 10-year period plus a 10-year lease on the batteries, following which all the equipment become ours and will belong to the body corporate and as such to each of the individual owners. Included in the PPA and the lease is the maintenance, cleaning, support, guarantees, insurance, everything that is associated with the ownership of such a system. So no, there are no further fees involved. We pay for the consumption on the generation side and for the lease on the batteries. That's it. Again, because this is an industrial size commercial installation, it is not your run-of-the-mill home installation. So basically this system is designed to power large-scale factories, businesses, shopping centers, etc. That being said, the equipment used is of a much larger nature than you would find in a home installation, and as such will give you a much longer lifespan. So the solar panels themselves are probably guaranteed for around 25 years. The batteries, which technically is seen as a consumable, in this case are guaranteed for 10 years. Again, because the system is actively managed by the installer, they would probably know of any problems before we even do and dispatch someone to sort it out. The installer, via the financier, will make available a service level agreement or SLA that we can sign up for to continue all the services I listed earlier, such as maintenance, support, insurance, etc. So once we take ownership, the nice part is we don't pay for generation anymore, so the per kilowatt hour fee falls away. Our generation becomes free, savings increase dramatically, and the only fee that we need to pay is on the SLA to make sure that the equipment is looked after and maintained. There might be cases where we would need to or would want to increase the capacity of the batteries in order to accommodate us for longer periods of load shedding, or if the battery usage has deteriorated to such point that we want to replace batteries, then we can look at upping a lease at that point. However, because both the generation and the battery lease is over a 10-year period, both of those come to an end at the same time. So extending a new lease on new batteries at that point is not going to make a big impact. Most definitely not. If you just look at a cost impact, the inverters and the batteries um, are quite expensive, the batteries being the most expensive part of the solution. However, without an alternative source of energy generation, the owner is going to be 100% reliant on Eskom feed, or municipal feed in this case. And what happens if you've got an extended period of outage, as we have experienced in the past? There is then zero way of charging your batteries, which generally is spec'd to only last you between 2 and 4 hours. Should you be in a scenario now where your power is off for a day, day and a half, there is no way of charging your batteries. In other words, the system becomes redundant. In my opinion, no. Because we are pooling our resources, you would look at anywhere between 1,500 and, depending on the size of system that you want to install, 4,500 Rand per month to give you sufficient cover as we can offer with this joint system or commercial system, as you wish. If you look at projections and many articles in the news at the moment, it looks like Eskom's woes are not going to get any better. As a matter of fact, they are just getting worse. It is projected that we can see stage 10 load shedding by the middle of this year, or winter this year. And there is no, how do you put it, there's no forecast as to when load shedding will actually come to an end. Government is unable to provide us with any information as to when we can expect reliable electricity supply. So I believe it is up to each individual, and in our case, each estate, to make provision to make sure that the residents of this estate are taken care of from an electricity security point of view. Well, quite simply, there are many people a lot cleverer than I am that say yes. And one of those resources that are available to solar engineers is called the Global Solar Atlas, which, if you consult it, says that Plettenberg Bay on average has around 1,700 kilowatt hours of electricity generation available per square meter. That to me is yes. A trustee was tasked with driving the solar project, and as he had already been involved, or is already involved, in several other projects, he was extremely busy, so I volunteered to assist. And yeah, I eventually sort of took over, and very quickly realized that I did not have the required knowledge to actually do this properly. So I went and enrolled myself in a solar engineering course and ended up completing the course. So yeah, I now fully understand what I'm actually doing. Well, I think I stand to gain exactly the same as any of the other owners of Castleton, and that is to have a secured electricity feed, number one, and number two, cover for load shedding, which I think we all want and need.